Get off me! Help! I'm under attack! Alrighty then, let's open it up. Rising up, straight to the shop. I ate the monkeys in my pants hole. I told the people that we're not gonna stop, even though all the ticks will survive. It's the night of the tiger and I'm fighting the fight, rising up to survive in the night. The eye of the night. Good God. Night of the tiger. Oh. Greetings, programs. Hanker and Fernail here with another awesome episode of Drunken's and Dragons. We are going to play D&D mo badass than you did last night, because tonight you've got new thinking.
Mind expansion.
Welcome to Key Mechanics. It's been a while. Yeah! We're going to get back into some key mechanics now. I've been focusing a lot on content lately, like actual playable scenarios, and that's really cool. But during this few weeks that no videos have come out, I know, terrible. There's been a lot of writing getting done. Got another Kickstarter project coming out called Dwarves, working with Imbalanced Games. That's going to be epic. Another Kickstarter game coming together with a viewer, which will remain secret for now, but it's going to be awesome. Did the art for that. And then also, I don't think I'm ready to announce it yet, but we are sneaking up on 10,000 subscribers, and that is amazing in under 2 years. For 10,000 subscribers, I'm going to be releasing a full-on RPG with a bunch of cool stuff, and it's not Mokhtar, which is shrouded in mystery, but it's awesome. Anyway, enough intros. You know how I hate long intros. I want to get to the shit. You don't want to be hooting and hollering with a dry-ass talk hole. Hey, Hankern, your talk hole's getting dry. Oh, also did a collaboration with Tabletop Terrors. You should be seeing that coming out in a few weeks. That's gonna be bala. If I can figure out how to use Dropbox, that is. It's gonna be drop bala. Man, the humor on this show used to be of a pretty good caliber. What the hell are we looking at right here? What is the key mechanic for this week? Well, you probably got a spoiler in the title of the video that you already clicked, so. Well, but in my mind, the suspense is still real. It's palpable, and this is palping right here. I think that's actually palpation. Senator Palpation, the Sith Emperor. Key mechanics challenge. Oh, the challenge! It's over 9,000. So many viewers, you guys, the lumpy heads, my peoples, my stone cold folk, the true bloods of D&D have been asking me one question almost more than any other, and I have been working on a solution for over a year now. Just nothing that I was coming up with for an answer was satisfactory. I kept, how am I going to pull all of these concepts into a tight package that is going to help new DMs or skilled DMs up in their game to master the art of tuning encounter challenge. Now, you've heard probably some of my rants and raves about how useless challenge rating is, right? Challenge rating is useless, and it really is, because they're basing these generalities about what's easy, hard, medium, deadly, whatever, based on total generalities of statistical anticipation. Statistical anticipation has nothing to do with anything. This is why robots always lose when they battle humans, because they're statistically stacking up the forces in a conflict, and they are failing to anticipate the human element. Well, in your D&D group, you've got 4, 5, maybe even 6 or more human elements that are going to snafu and snafubar your encounter and drop the encounter level with ingenuity, with role-playing, with, you know, coming up with stuff that you never imagined, you know, taking it sideways, so to speak. So how do you not only plan good challenge for groups that are hard to actually challenge, like they're just too good, they just plow through everything you do, or same question is going to be answered tonight, how do I adapt my challenge such that if I see an encounter playing out and it's like, oh crap, they're either getting totally creamed, which doesn't happen that often, honestly, or this isn't hard at all for them, it's maybe getting boring, or this is taking too long and it's boring, whatever. How do you adapt that challenge on the fly? Now, the answer to those two questions is fundamentally the same, except in the planning regard, you're thinking in an axiomatic fashion, an a priori fashion. You're thinking before the fact. And that's a good time to think big and be hard-minded and assertive. Now, when you're adapting to the game and the encounter is not going as you want it to, it's sputtering, or it's overly lethal, or it's just a plain pushover, then axiomatic is the last thing you want to be. You want to be flexible, you want to be adaptive, and most of all, the most important thing you can be when you are nerfing or buffing an encounter with your party as it's happening is honest. You have to be out in the open about the fact that you are tuning the encounter. And you can give descriptions and qualities to this action that will make the players love you even more, and they will see the processes by which you are masterfully dungeon mastering. Boom! Process that for a minute while I finish this little guy. Oh my god. I'm going back to the well. I'm going back to the well because it's a sweet nectar. Hey, hoo-hoo. Okay. Challenge. Tuning challenge. Now, I'm not really going to address whether you're planning or whether you're adapting, because what I want you to focus on is this fantastic, awe-inspiring, handcrafted visual aid. I am about visual aids when it comes to comprehending complex and compound subject matter. So it has taken me months, literally, of trying to figure out a simple way to compress the theory of challenge, control, and adaptation into a visual aid. So really all we have here is 3 switches, 3 dials that we can adjust on an encounter to adjust its challenge level. Okay, so these are the 3 things that you're going to mark in your notes, or the 3 things you're going to have on your mind during play to get the challenge to ascend or descend. Now first I want to walk you through what these 3 categories are, and then we're going to talk about the really fun part, which is moving them from down here. You can see this is a 1, and up here this is a 6. So for each of these dials, this is minimum, and if I'm to move it back here, it's maximum. Okay, so we're going to discuss the different scenarios and situations that moving these dials from minimum to maximum are going to create in your game, both in planning and in adapting and improvising. Okay, the first category over there is the one you're probably the most familiar with, and that is damage. What is the damage output of your encounter? You should have a fundamental and simple working knowledge of what the damage output is going to be. Now this can be really easy. So I have 10 zombies. They each do 1d8 with slashing claws and biting. So I've got about 10d8 damage output, right? So I just shoot the middle. That's about 40, right? 10d8 maximum would be 80. You're not gonna roll maximum all the time. Shoot the middle. That's about 40 damage output. Now that one's pretty easy to calculate. It can be a little weirder when you get into, well, I have a dragon, there's a crack with lava in it, there's a swarm of flies that's moving in and out of the encounter, and then there are well pads coming out of a cave. And how do I calculate the damage output? It's okay, you don't need to know the numbers. But what you do need to know is the fundamentals. And this is where the dial concept is going to come in so handy for you. When you're jotting down your notes for your encounter, you can just mark 1 to 6 on damage. I know, it seems overly simple, right? But this is just a way for you to remember, this is a high damage encounter. This is a low damage encounter. Now, how is that interesting? Well, we're going to get to that. But right now, what you're just understanding is, damage is a thing I can adjust in an encounter. Now, if you're looking up, giant ants out of the monster manual, there's going to be some attacks listed there. with recommended damage. And you want to stay pretty close because your world should feel consistent in a way that people are familiar with D&D are going to appreciate that you're playing out of the book, right? Because that feels legit. But with simple techniques, you can adjust all that stuff and everyone will feel cooler about it. Adjusting damage either in planning or on the fly is a simple matter of adding a little descriptive hook to the adjustment. So let's take Umber Hulks. You have 2 Umber Hulks that come running out. They both land all 4 claw attacks, and you realize this damage is pathetic. These guys are terrible. So there's a 3rd Umber Hulk which you had planned to spawn, and when he spawns, you simply say, as he comes out of his cavern, you notice that the 3rd Umber Hulk has been grafted with iron-tipped claws. Now, on the next set of attacks for that Umber Hulk, double all his damage. It's that simple. Don't slightly increase his damage because honestly, neither you nor I know what we're doing. So slight increases probably will have no effect, especially once the dice enter the picture. But if you just simply double, everything will make sense. Now let's say you double this Umber Hulk. It still is pathetic damage. You're like, wow, I really need to do something. Okay? Hopefully you have another Umber Hulk ready. And if you don't, you can explain this into one of your current 3 Umber Hulks that are in the combat. But you basically say, the Umber Hulk you're fighting leans back and flexes and shakes, and his carapace splits open in places with some kind of strange glow coming from within. And it's clear this creature has been experimented on. Double the damage again. There you go. And your players will spawn all kinds of theories and explanations for how the story is going to twist and turn based on this weird Umber Hulk. And you should take note of those. You're probably your best story hooks right there are going to come from that moment. But this is just you buffing damage. And you're buffing it by doubling it, not by adjusting it in some anemic little way. Okay, so why is damage useful for adjusting challenge? Pretty obvious. High damage output makes encounters incredibly dangerous and deadly, and when they're deadly, they're difficult. We all are familiar with that. It's the fundamental method of increasing difficulty in D&D is damage output that can overcome defenses of the players. Okay, so you always want to be careful because if your damage gets too spiky, meaning too sudden and too high, you can kill characters in an instant. And that may be the desire because you have a high enough level group they can do resurrect and they can do other things. But generally you want to avoid insane spikes of damage. So as you're going through this doubling procedure in your mind, you're going to know when you hit a crazy point. And it's going to be somewhere around like, 10d10. Anything beyond that, the spikes are going to get too massive. So control yourself. Don't go beyond breath weapons. Like, whoa. If your dragon comes out, does a breath weapon, and just happens to roll low on 10d8, don't double that. Don't do 20d8. You're off the charts. So there you go. Use damage to incur lots of pain on those players, and that pain is going to move them around the map. It's going to make them look for assistance, look for cover, look for ways to solve the encounter because they can't take the damage. Final tip on damage. If your players are doing, let's say, around 20-ish damage in an attack, maybe between 10 and 20 damage on an attack, then your monsters should be doing between 20 and 30. You always should be one class or one click up from player damage because they're players. They have all kinds of tricks up their sleeve. You're just a DM with a bunch of dumb monsters. You need all the help you can get, all right? So that's my overall advice on damage. Take a look at your players, which you should know kind of, some detail about your players, and click them up for all your monsters to make sure that they hit with a vengeance. All right, the next category that you're going to use to control challenge tuning, both in planning and improvisation, is disruption. This is the most complex element involved in challenge adjustment. But again, if you have a simple sense of what's disruption level 1 and what's disruption level 6, it's going to give you a working knowledge of how to adjust it and a simple way to keep notes about the tone and the danger elements present in any given encounter. Disruption is the element in an encounter that involves line of sight being blocked. It involves movement being inhibited. When you're disrupted, you're held in place. You're mind controlled. You're blown off a cliff. You are entrapped and can't move. When you're disrupted, you are knocked back, is probably one of the most classic video game forms of disruption. When you're disrupted, you are teleported to an alternate dimension where you have to do 20 damage to a totem to teleport back to the current battle. When you're disrupted, you are charmed with the bad guy, so you turn against your foes or try to convince them to stop fighting. When you're disrupted, you are split up in the group. When you're disrupted, some of you are sent to another room where you have to make a journey back to the... You see, I'm starting to repeat some of the same concepts, but they have a million different descriptive permutations. Disruption is the design of the spatial factors at play in an encounter, okay? So low disruption would be like you're fighting a Balrog in a parking lot, okay? That would be high damage, low disruption. It's just a nice, big, flat, open space, and there's nothing weird gonna happen. It's just you versus him. Okay, nice. It's like a boxing ring. It's very low disruption. High disruption would be, you know, something crazy like the Hellraiser domain, or like Maze Runner, or like, you know, Daedalus's labyrinth in mythology. There are pieces of the floor moving up and down, gouts of flame coming out, spears, and then shackles that jump out and grab your ankles, and then slides where stairs used to be, and you're down here all of a sudden, and the room's rotating, and it's disrupting everything. Disruption can be much harder to plan and conceive of in your encounters, especially if you don't give yourself any awesome intellectual tools. So get the tools. This means understand what a 1 disruption is and a 6 disruption. 1 disruption is easy. Like I said, the parking lot. There's almost no work for you to do. But if you want a high disruption encounter, you're going to need something original. You need to fight on the edge of a cliff with howling wind. You need to fight on the ship, the deck of a burning ship as it's descending from the sky, about to crash into a mountain. You need to battle on the back of a dying dragon as it caroms out of the sky. You need to do battle as you're plummeting down a chasm, like when Gandalf is chasing the Balrog, facing all these disruptive factors. That is disruption. A lot of times you're going to get your most interesting ideas when you just sit down and you decide, let's do a high disruption encounter. That's the mental tool though. That's the creative tool. Deciding, is this low disruption, parking lot, high disruption, Daedalus's labyrinth. Just right there you have a huge decision. What's the middle? Well, it's a little bit of both. And then you say, okay, how am I going to explain it? And you get the creative wheels moving, rather than just sitting back and going, what's this encounter going to be? Paralysis, right? It hurts when you get that creative paralysis. You feel terrible. God knows I get it all the time. Okay, so that's our second factor for adjusting challenge in an encounter. Low disruption is almost going to have zero effect on your encounter. High disruption can be 10 to 100 times more impactful on challenge difficulty than damage. Like, process that. Okay, a great example could be a high disruption encounter, like I mentioned, fighting on the edge of a cliff with massive gales of wind that come in, right? The wind is so strong that if you don't have some kind of measure, like leaning against something or being anchored to resist the wind, that the strength check is crazy. It's like a 25 strength check to resist this wind. And if you fail that check, you fly off the freaking cliff. And like your character catches their fall by one pinky down here on the cliffside and has to be assisted with rope, or has 1d4 rounds before they fall to their death. That wind is more deadly than almost every monster you can throw at the damn players, because the conditions for death are so imminent. And disruption, therefore, is a really powerful way to up the challenge level of your encounters. So if your players are really strong and like they're kicking monsters' asses and you're like, how do I make anything hard for these guys? Consider high levels of disruption, okay? So finally, we have duration. Duration is self-explanatory, right? And it's not simple like how long is the encounter, right? That might be simple to explain, like 1 would be short and 6 would be long. No, That is not understanding duration. And here's where you need that intellectual tool, that creative tool, to get a sketch of your encounter so that you can fill in the creative details. Controlling duration in an encounter means, what is causing the duration? That's the question you're answering. And if your answer is nothing, that's a 1. A 1 duration encounter means you can kind of come and go as you please. You could stay here as long as you wanted, or you could leave any time and the encounter would be over. So an example of an encounter like that might be something like brawling with people in a tavern, right? You can kind of punch a guy, maybe he punches you back, and then everybody says, whoa, whoa, let's not fight. And you kind of relax and you can stay there a few days, you know, get a room. Then you go back down, you get drunk again, and it's like Thursday night instead of Tuesday, and then you're like, you know what, this guy is an a-hole. And you get into a fight again, you fight for 24 hours, you get really worn out, and you say, hey man, let's just chill out, okay? Let's move on with life. All right, that means there is no control on the duration. It could be anything. It could be 5 seconds, it could be 5 weeks. It does not impact the difficulty in the encounter because you can come and go. As a matter of fact, no control on duration can vastly reduce the challenge of an encounter because it lets players rest and egress and return to the fight. A great example might be a war level encounter. So if your players are fighting a war using metagame mechanics, they can engage the war, then withdraw, engage the war, and so on and so forth, and they can control their danger by extending the duration. You're not controlling the duration. A level 6 duration encounter is maximally controlled. The duration is brutally controlled. Now this can be super simple, like you have 1d4 rounds to get the hell out of this room or you all die, right? Or the duration could be controlled by survival. You have to kill this guy, this orc over here. He has to die before you're going to be able to rest or before you can move on to the next room. You see, then duration is lightly controlled. How long does it take to kill that orc? I'm not sure. So I would call that more like a 3 duration. As far as the control of the duration, remember, it's not how long a thing takes. It's how much do I impinge upon you with control of duration. Now, if you start to understand this concept, you'll have better control of rest with your characters, and you will have the ability to rush them. And when you have the ability to rush them and they have haste, oh boy, that's when you really got them. When they hastily do things, that's when you can spring traps. That's when you can hit them with blind dead ends and trap them with other monsters moving in on them. That's when you can make them make mistakes. Is that the time is of the essence. That is a level 6 duration encounter. You have so little time. Now, you can also rise and fall with this, which you guys are familiar with, using the timer dice. So when you roll a timer and it's a 1, that is the feeling of a very high duration controlled encounter. The players are like, we have 1 round before all the bees enter the bus? That's horrible. Whereas if you roll a 4, the players have 4 entire rounds before the bees enter the bus. They can come up with all kinds of plans and devious methods and cast spells and do all kinds of stuff. The bus will probably be on fire, reduced to ashes, and in the astral plane by the time it's filled with bees. So do you see how vastly duration control can adjust challenge? So once again, if you don't want the duration of the encounter to really affect its difficulty, leave it open. This is a classic way to do really old school dungeon crawling, is that there's no control on duration. So you can kind of go into a room and maybe there's some bugbears and you kind of kill one of them, and then you go and you backtrack and you go back to the other room and there's a treasure there and you get the treasure, and then maybe one of those other bugbears gives chase and then you kill that one too, and then you sleep a while. Then you go back into the other room and the third bugbear is still there looking confused and you kill him, and time gets a little weird on you and life goes on, right? That's real old school dungeon crawling where duration is not controlled. But if you go up against a freaking black dragon and you have 2d6 turns before the top of the tower you're fighting on crumbles completely into the chasm of fire, holy shit, things just got real. And the players need to know that and poop their pants, because when they poop their pants, So those are the three factors at play. Damage, disruption, and duration. Those are all you need. Now, just like the 3 T's in my room design series, the 3Ds, get it? The terrain is 3D. I know it's horrible. That was a total accident. But the 3Ds are a great way for you to take notes when you're starting to sketch and conceive of encounters and use as a creative tool so that you aren't just staring down this massive blank page trying to come up with cool D&D, because without good cognitive tools, that can be very difficult. Okay, so now let's get into what changing and combining these dials in different ways is going to become, descriptively speaking. So once again, let's get away from the general and the abstract and get right down to the specific, because that's where you're gonna make your money as a dungeon master, right? Okay, so let's say that we take a medium damage encounter. Okay, so medium damage to me for almost any level is gonna be something like 2d10, right? Your average monster is slamming 2d10 attacks, maybe with a +10 on top. There you go. That's medium to me as far as damage goes. And you know, there's a half dozen of them, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then we're gonna put a really high disruption and a really high duration. This is an insanely deadly encounter. So this is a few bugbears who happen to have knives strapped to their faces. They are fighting on the crumbling tectonic remnants of their cave because you have set off the explosives on accident. And there's only 1d4 rounds to get them out of your way to clear the exit so you can flee. So even though I only have bugbears, my encounter got incredibly difficult. Time is limited, rocks are falling everywhere. Well, and now you can just start filling in all the details, right? The whole map shifts and everything is sliding, so all the furniture and the junk and their nests and everything is sliding off into the abyss. The timer's counting down, you're making dex checks, falling off is a serious issue. Yeah, wow. Okay, take the same encounter and remove the disruption, but keep your duration control. So now you're going into the bugbear cave, but the whole thing is not crumbling because your players didn't set off the explosives. But the bugbears have spotted you and they are running over toward their horn of alerting. You know, they're, all of the bugbears come to play, right? They're gonna reach that horn in 1d4 rounds, and then it's gonna quadruple the number of bugbears. Lots of bugbears, though, is nowhere near as dangerous as that high disruption. Okay, so let's take another weird version, which would be a low amount of duration control, lots of disruption, and very low damage. Let's say the damage is so low it's actually 0. There are no monsters. The only kind of danger is death-like danger. And we've got a little bit of duration control with a lot of disruption. So this could be one of the classic moments that we had in our campaign. All the players had to do was cross a crumbling bridge in this really precipitous height atop Tower Evermoon. It was one of those cool little arches that go between the high towers on a fantasy castle, right? The whole thing is shaking and crumbling, and all they have to do is run across. There is no damage that's happening, but the disruption is so high that one wrong move and you're dropping to your death. The duration is slightly controlled in that it's gonna take some time, this thing's gonna crumble totally, but not so brutal as to be like it's 1d4 rounds before the whole thing crumbles. It was more just like, you gotta get across. Work on it, work on it, work on it, work on it. Okay, you made a cross. Now, if you could take the same encounter, turn up the duration control, and say this whole thing is gonna give in 1d4 rounds, and if you roll a 1 on that thing, they better have like frickin' fly or a wish or like the rock, what is it, the rock gem where you can summon the giant bird and like fly across, or one of those things, you know, mass flight or one of these crazy spells, a geese. Anyway, there you go. Okay, so let's say you turn down the disruption and turn up the damage on the exact same encounter. Okay, so the bridge is no longer crumbling, but you want high duration control and you want high damage. So this was actually another scenario we had in a different adventure where they were crossing a very narrow sort of Khazad-dûm style crossing, and there was a swarm of spiders. The duration is controlled by, there's so many effing spiders, they just start to completely overtake the bridge and it's gonna become overwhelming. but it's not like 1d4 overwhelming, but it's pretty damn bad. And the damage is just ridiculous. As these spiders rack up, you're getting 8, 10, 12 attacks per player as these spiders are just coming in, just thrashing the shit out of everything. Now let's say you turn down the duration, but you want this damage to be really high. Then instead of having a near infinite amount of spiders, you as the DM just sort of control it. You just say, well, I never really want more than like 6 of them attacking a player at the same time. So I'm not just gonna keep spawning them. Even though in my journal it says spawn 5 every round. What was I thinking? On the fly, you've decided, I'm gonna turn down some of the time pressure here, but I'm gonna try to keep this damage. Maybe I'll drop it to a 5 rather than a 6 and get this encounter evened out. A common mistake that DMs will make is that they will want to increase the duration, and in a literal way, of an encounter to make it hard. And the most common way to do this is to turn the damage way up and to make the enemies have tons of hit points, right? Because it's gonna take forever to kill this guy. I'm gonna get an opportunity to do all these spells. You know what you accidentally did? You put duration at 1 because you're not controlling it. This isn't how long a fight takes. It's how much you control how long a fight takes. So if you give your enemies high hit points, you are inadvertently just giving players tons of time to do all kinds of things, to think up strategies, to come up with foobars and side routes and flip things on their ear in ways that you never anticipated and own your character, your monster. This is really common with dragon fights because they drag on and players start getting more and more creative, and creativity is their ultimate weapon. So in trying to extend the fight with high hit points on your monsters, you have accidentally turned your duration dial all the way to the bottom. So my advice in general is to watch out for really high hit point monsters, because A, it can be kind of boring just beating up a bullet sponge, and B, you will accidentally protract the battle in such a long way. You just give players room for all kinds of creativity. So what does mid-level look like? Kind of mid on duration, mid on disruption, and mid on damage. This to me is most well-designed D&D encounters. Lots of encounters fall into this category. This is where you have a timer in your room, and that timer is a mild timer. Oh wait, a timer in your room. It's a mild timer that maybe does some damage or causes a little bit of disruption when it, so it ratchets up, and then this ratchets up 1. Then this reaches its time again, and this ratchets up 1. That's a very common, like the lava is rising. So down here there's very little disruption. As time goes on, disruption is clicking up and up and up, right? It's mild though. The disruption isn't just the thing. It's not the enemy. It's an element of the room, and this is really common. The mushrooms near the wall will grab you if you get close to them. That's a very mild kind of mid-level disruption. Mid-level damage is basically damage that's doubled out of the book. Lowest level damage to me is damage you take right out of the book. That's going to be very low. It's not going to be impressive. So if you double your Umber Hulk, usually I think it's a claw bite, so 3 attacks on the Umber Hulk. Just double the damage on each one and you will have a formidable creature. And then for mid-level duration, this is a mild form of duration control. And it probably just means when this battle is over, duration being length of time to kill the Umber Hulk, which is kind of up to the players, you can't find a safe place to rest. If there was a safe place to rest, there'd be no duration control at all. But you want to move them to the next encounter with at least enough haste and at least enough rush that they can't rest. So that's mid-level. And this is where a lot of D&D happens. But if you let your mind stick in this kind of mid-level creative tool set, you just don't get useful sketches to design your rooms. And A, it's going to be very difficult. And B, you'll find that your room balance is going to start feeling the same. So here's the final thesis of how to adjust challenge and how to use these creative tools that I'm giving you. Try this as an exercise for your next night of D&D. Make one room that has maximum damage and low duration and low disruption. Then make another room which has low to negligible damage, maximum disruption, and almost no duration control. That's an interesting one. It's kind of weird. Then try this one, which is a fast moving, this is almost like a race of some kind. There's very little disruption, there's very little damage, but damn, time is tight, baby. We got to get this thing done. Try creating those 3 rooms and just see where your mind takes it. Because the fun here is that the creative tools don't really tell you what to do. They just give you a box to play in, and that box is changing shape. Now once you start getting the hang for doing that, try the opposite exercise, which is turn up 2 and leave 1 at minimal. Like that, right? Or like that, or like that. Right? What do these mean for me in my campaign right now? Well, I'm running a Mushroom Forest Underdark campaign thing. So if I have high disruption and high duration control, but low damage, okay, well maybe there's just some little baby myconids running around. But the disruption is that the mushrooms, whenever touched, kind of, they go poop, 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 and they keep popping the players around to random places on the map, not hurting them, just moving them around, but somebody has to get to the far end of the room to snuff the magic torch, which will make all the mushrooms sleep before the spores fill the room, right? So everybody's just trying to cross the damn map, but they keep getting bebopped around in crazy ways. Take the same encounter, turn this up, turn off the disruption. There's no longer any poppity mushrooms, but these are myconid warriors. Same thing, douse the magic torch before the spores spread. So you can see how just turning these dials can force your mind into creative answers. Well, what the hell does that even mean when I turn the dials in that way? And that's when you know you're using the creative tools effectively. It's impossible to just sit down and just conjure awesomeness with no context for the box in which you're working. And that, my friends, is part of the very definition of game design, is limitations with semi-predictable or achievable outcomes that could be considered victory or defeat. The same context applies to you as the creative mastermind as it does for the players playing through the content. It's a game for you too. And these kind of rules and boxes can help you to conceive of that content, because let's face it, the cool dungeon mastering is when you are writing fresh content for your guys. No one else in the world gets to play it but them. It's unique, it's in the moment, and it's real. Now finally, remember, if you have to do these kinds of adjustments on the fly with your players because things are not going as you wanted to, just be honest. And when I say honest, I mean it in the utmost sense of the word. Be like, wow, man, you guys are kind of owning these guys. I think I'm going to bump it up a little. I'm going to bump it up a notch here. Then, maybe write a note, just so that it's on paper, so you're not just pulling it out of your butt. Write a note. They'll see you write a note. You don't have to show them what you write. Say, okay. Then when you bring out your next threat, you just put one little piece of flavor on it. The next Umber Hulk that's spawned comes out with iron grafted claws, and they're like, oh frick, he buffed the damage. It's not like it's some kind of secret, like you're some kind of treacherous DM. They know you just buffed the damage. And they're gonna love you for it. That's part of the symbiotic relationship that you want to develop. Those are the things that are gonna make great stories later. Not, oh man, he's such a lame DM because he buffed the damage. No. He's a brilliant DM because he was insightful enough to see that the challenge was off and opened it up, made it descriptive, and then the battle got epic. So that's it, you guys. My fundamental guide to how to understand, adjust, and conceive of challenge adjustments, especially when you're in that situation where you're having a hard time challenging very innovative, resourceful, or high power level characters. Work with your 3 dials and get that challenge level up where it needs to be. That's it for now. This is me. I am me hankering for a nail here. That's me. And please hit that like button on the video. If you're enjoying the channel, we got a lot of newcomers. Welcome one and all. It's great to have you. If you're enjoying the channel, you can either press the I don't know where I am in internet space right now, but you can press the support this channel, throw $5 in the tip jar. That would be fantastic. Or better yet, please go on Amazon and grab yourself a copy of my first novel, Mud and Horn, Sword and Sparrow. There is a shameless plug for the book, but those who have read it and are reading it right now seem to really enjoy it. So that's the best way to support the channel, is go grab a copy of the book, tell your friends about the book, and they can enjoy it too. Well, it's been great having you guys. Nice to see you again through the virtual domain of the Dimension domain. And yeah, high challenge, man. All right, gods of D&D, I command that you give me close-ups, grant me this book. The 3Ds in 3D. The 3Ds in 3D.